Very good friend, Senator Lindsey Graham, has been not only a good friend to the ACLJ, but also a leader when it comes to the situation on so many issues. But right now we're talking about the Middle East. Senator Graham, we just got word this morning that ISIS is basically sending individuals, assassins, into the Jordanian refugee camps targeting Christians. The president has said he's putting 50 special forces on the ground. You're a military guy, Judge Advocate General, distinguished career in the United States Air Force. Can you first let our audience know reaction to the president's move, and then we'll talk about what's going on with ISIS?
Well, number one, I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan's region 35 times in the last decade. I'm not a military, been a military lawyer. I'm not an Army guy. Yep. But here's what I've learned in terms of the military political dynamic. What the president has done is chosen the worst possible, made the worst possible decision. 50 is too few to change things on the battlefield.
Right.
In the eyes of ISIL, when the President of the United States says we will degrade and destroy you, and he is committed to sending only 50 people, they understand that he's not really serious about it. In the eyes of our friends, they understand we're not committed to ISIL's destruction. So ISIL comes out of this thing stronger.
So, Senator Graham, in a situation like this, you were an early advocate of backing when there was a serious potential to have real liberators in Syria. Has that moment passed right now, or how would you handle it as a commander-in-chief?
Okay, there's nothing but bad options left.
Yeah.
ISIL predecessor was Al-Qaeda in Iraq. People want to blame. Okay, Bush made mistakes going in. I made mistakes. Obama's biggest mistake was leaving Iraq too soon without any troops.
Yeah,
so
no status of force agreement. Yeah,
right. Al-Qaeda in Iraq was on its knees. It came back inside of Iraq when we withdrew. The country began to fall apart. Maliki became more sectarian. At the same time, Syria was at a moment of change. Assad was on the ropes. If we'd helped the Free Syrian Army 3 years ago when they were in attack, establish a no-fly zone, Assad would have been gone and Syria would be repairing itself. But he ignored the advice of his commanders to leave 10,000 in Iraq, and he ignored the advice of his entire national security team to help the Free Syrian Army 3 years ago. So where are we today? So the bottom line is there's not much left to work with inside of Syria. But I would establish a no-fly zone to keep the Syrian refugees from having to leave Syria, a safe haven for Christians so they won't be slaughtered, a place to train what's left of the Free Syrian Army. But now you're going to need a regional approach because ISIL's gotten so strong. I would go to Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt with large armies. I would have 3 ground components. I'd have Free Syrian forces that were trained in a no-fly zone. I'd get the region to come in because they want to destroy ISIL too, because ISIL's coming after them. And there'd be an American component to make sure we won. 90% them, 10% us. I'd go in on the ground with this regional army, the Syrians out front, destroy ISIL, hold the territory, turn to Assad. ISIL would be Germany, Assad would be Japan. If you don't hit them decisively, they're going to hit us.
Are you in any way, we talked about you've talked about this on the broadcast before, the persecution against Christians right now by ISIS is a targeted group here. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So we have this report coming out today that, in fact, ISIS is deploying teams of trained assassins into the refugee camps in Jordan and targeting Christians. This is not, none of us are shocked at this. I'm sure you're not either. But doesn't this point to the fact that this is a really brutal enemy that has to be not curtailed, but destroyed?
Well, they have an agenda. They want to establish a caliphate to purify Islam, to take it back to the 11th century view of Sunni Islam. They want to kill every Shiite they can get their hands on, kill every Muslim who disagrees with them, destroy the Christian faith in the Mideast, attack Israel, and come after us. Al-Baghdadi, the head of ISIL, who was in an American POW camp for 5 years, was turned over to the Iraqis by an American colonel, and he turned to the colonel and said, "I'll see you in New York." So, yes, they make the Al-Qaeda look like the Rotary Club in terms of brutality. Yep. They were the most radical terrorist organization on the planet. They're getting stronger. They have to be destroyed. You can't do it from the air. 50 special forces are put in harm's way with no chance of success.
So why did Senator Graham, why did the president do that? And why did the president say, I'm going to deploy 50 forces?
Just to to show that he's doing something other than bombing them. The effort to train the Free Syrian Army was a dismal failure. They want to do two things in Syria: destroy ISIL and take Assad out, who's killed 250,000 of their family. So when the DOD abandoned their training program, he had to do something. So he did the least amount possible. This is so few that he can tell the left, I'm really not breaking my promise about no ground forces.
We said,
but it's still something different, so they can say he's adjusting his strategy. It's the worst possible solutions, because ISIL sees this as weakness, that he's not all in their destruction. Our allies see this as a tepid response. Then you got Assad, who has been fully supported by Russia and Iran. Assad being in power is bad for us. It means Russia and Iran are going to dictate the terms of any agreement. They will own Syria, and you don't want the Russians and the Iranians dictating the terms of any agreement in Syria. You don't want the Russians back in the Mideast, and you don't want to give Iran another capital. That will give them 4 Arab capitals. So Obama has a hands-off approach to Assad, and that's going to hurt us in the long run too.
Senator, I've been making the statement that we've seen a resurgent Russia, muscular Russia, flexing its muscle in the Middle East. We haven't seen this since the mid-1970s, where they've been this much of a player in the Middle East. The Russian military is there. The Iranian militaries are there. We've got limited forces there. What is the potential for a real conflict here between the United States and Russia?
None, because Obama is here's what's happened. We trained thousands of Syrian fighters, the CIA did, to take Assad down. We've got 2 goals in Syria that I share: destroy ISIL, push out Assad. Obama has the right goals. The ground component will not work against ISIL. There is no ground component. The Syrian Kurds and Syrian Arabs are not strong enough to defeat ISIL. 50 special forces won't change the tide of battle. You're going to need a regional approach, and you're going to have an American ground component to win. When it comes to Assad, the Russian president bombed the people we trained to take Assad down. The American president, once the people were bombed, has had a hands-off policy. So Russia won. We lost.
Unbelievable.
Assad won. We lost.
Logan's got a question coming in from Facebook or Periscope.
A general amount of comments. A lot of people kind of summarizing the same thing. A lot of people are actually worried for these 50 military men that have been sent over. Essentially, Janice just said, are these 50 just sent as sacrificial lambs? We had another comment that said all these 50 poor military men to do the work of an entire army. And they're it seems like people are more concerned about this, as well as obviously the issue of just sending 50 alone. It's obviously a big topic of conversation.
So, Senator Graham, from your perspective, this is a dangerous mission for these 50 special officers, special operations units.
It's not just dangerous, it's impossible. People in the military sign up for danger. It's one thing to send a man or a woman into a dangerous environment knowing it would be difficult. It's unconscionable to send them into given a mission they can't win. So these 50 are very much at risk. They don't have any chance to change the tide of battle. Military members sign up for threat. They sign up for risk. But the commander-in-chief owes it to every soldier to give them a chance to win. And what hurts me the most is that this adjustment of sending 50 will not lead to a change on the ground. It just puts them at risk. And let's pray for their families. Let's literally pray for those who go into Syria and their families, because they're going to need our prayers.
All right, Senator Graham, we appreciate you coming on, appreciate your leadership on this, and we're going to go to you again as this situation unfolds. Thanks for being with us, Senator.
Thank you.